Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or today or this evening, depending on where you're all located. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today. My name is Karen Cooper. I'm Senior Manager of Product Marketing with Spectralink, and I've got a couple of colleagues with me today, Bus Henry, Technical Trainer with Professional Services, and Elliot Ellison, our Director of Product Management for our Enterprise Mobility Services platform. And we're very excited to show you today one of the newest additions to Spectralink's portfolio, and that is AMIE, our Advanced Mobile Intelligence for Enterprises. So we're going to give you a little information about AMIE, and both Bus and Elliot are going to do a nice little demo for you. So first of all, for those of you on the webinar that maybe not that familiar with Spectralink, I'm just going to give sort of a brief overview of who we are, kind of why would you want to enable a mobility intelligence solution. So a little detail around what is AMIE, and then we'll get into the good stuff with a live demo. So just a couple of housekeeping things. We will be showing software, so if you want to make sure your screen is maximized as much as possible so you're able to see different things that we'll be showing you. And then if you do have any questions, we'll probably take questions at the end of the webinar, but you can type your questions into the chat box online here, and we'll take note of that and address everything at the end as we're walking through the demos. So really from the start, Spectralink has been a top industry innovator, and we're really excited that this year we're actually celebrating our 30 years in the industry. And we've had a number of great successes for enterprise-grade mobility solutions, both in the Wi-Fi and DECT enterprise mobility space. For our company, our focus has really been on voice quality and voice quality optimization. In 1992, we actually introduced our first mobile device that focused on voice and really optimizing that for different industries. We also function on creating and designing our products that, as we say enterprise grade, they're really designed for those special industries and the way you work, how durable the phones have to be, the different features and functions that different industries expect from enterprise grade phones. We build those into all of our products. We have an alliance of over 500 plus technology partners that we work with that offer you flexibility in different call network interoperabilities. And now as the world obviously is transitioning more to smartphones and different applications that can work on the smartphones, we work with a lot of partners that our phone enables their applications. And with our commitment to innovation, we're really excited. As I mentioned, we're adding AMIE now to our solution portfolio for our Versity smartphone. This is our next phase. Our vision is really to be able to unify that end-to-end mobility. As we started out really around the connectivity and communication, voice is still very important today. We all work with email, push-to-talk type messaging, as well as text messaging, and being to have sort of those basic communication functions and features is really important. We've moved into more of the enterprise applications, some of the data exchange with the invention of the smartphone and being able to do a lot of those workflows and application mobilities on the go with the users. And now, it's very important that we empower the workers and really provide customer insights and allow some visibility into the mobile devices and the networks that they're running on with some analytics. This is a kind of an older statistic from a study that was done by SOTI and VDC Research, but I really think it's kind of pertinent and kind of puts the the reasoning behind having a mobile intelligence solution to be able to look at your devices and see how they're performing. But this study actually showed that one drop connection or a poorly performing application per shift can translate into almost $20,000 lost in annual support and productivity per worker. So if you think about that, every time you lose a call or you can't exchange data or something just doesn't work right, per shift, per worker, you start adding that up, and that can translate into a lot of dollars and certainly a decrease on your return on investment of these mobile devices. So one thing that is unique with Spectralink devices, obviously, is our devices are used in a shared environment. So unlike a BYOD type of situation, trying to manage these mobile devices in that kind of an environment can be very challenging. And it presents different challenges that you might have with BYOD. So really around that device management, deploying, how do you update shared devices? Shared batteries are part of that. There might be some specific application controls you need for one group versus another group. All these other things that you need to think about from this shared perspective. Optimizing connectivity is really important. Occasionally, I'm sure some of you on the line may have had users come to you and say, hey, this phone's not working. I keep getting dropped calls, or it's just not functioning right. And so really being able to maybe understand, is it the phone, is it the network, kind of what's going on here to help you optimize the operation for that. And then, as we all know, staff resources and being able to service and manage your mobility network is really challenging. I think I saw a study recently, at least within the healthcare space, that healthcare environments have 50,000 plus devices, not just phones, connected to their network at any given time. So really just thinking about the complexity of being able to manage all of that and have the staff to do that is important. And then I think the last thing is around user experience. This is something that people don't always necessarily think about, but as you're introducing a new communication system or a new communication device, even a new application for that matter, it's really, being able to drive high adoption really drives that higher return on investment. And so if the user has a good experience, the user is happy with the device or application that they're using, then you're going to see higher adoption and have overall greater productivity. And so that's really important too. So with that, I'd like to walk you through AMIE. So what is AMIE? We like to think of AMIE as being your ally and assistant to really help you avoid downtime and optimize your operations. And AMIE is Spectralink's enterprise mobility intelligence solution for the IT and telecommunication administrators. And it's a suite of tools that really focuses on mobile device management and are also around performance analytics for the Spectralink Versity phone. Our first, AMIE is sort of a platform, and our first part of our platform is AMIE Essentials. So AMIE Essentials really focuses on device provisioning and application management. It includes an administrative dashboard, which is installed on-prem, and then a device provisioning and application management client, which is preloaded on the phone so that it can communicate back and forth. And Bus is going to show us in a few minutes what this all looks like. So AMIE Essentials focuses on helping you improve that fleet management, really saving time being able to provision, configure, and updating devices, particularly as it focuses in that shared environment. So our interface is really user-friendly, and it helps to really show those parameters that are most important in configuring our devices and applications. With Versity and with our BizPhone SIP dialer, our AMIE Essentials allows you to provision in a batch deployment type situation versus one phone at a time. So Bus will walk you through that as well. think another good thing with AMIE Essentials is a lot of times you have to take a phone out of service, send it in for an RMA, and but you want to be able to have that same configuration and quickly update that to a new phone. So it allows you to very easily swap out a bad device, map that configuration to a new device in a few clicks. Another thing that I think is more geared towards shared environments is a lot of times you want to set things up by the group level. Different groups might want different applications or different functionality of the applications on the phones, programming different buttons to do different things, whether you can use the push-to-talk functionality, various things like that. So sometimes in a shared environment, you have to be able to set these things up very quickly and have them managed for each group or each department or each level that you're operating on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bus, and Bus is going to walk you through some of the device provisioning and application management.
Thanks, Karen. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, so this is our AMIE Essentials platform here, our device management solution. You can see here I'm in the device list. There's a list of our devices that are currently connected to the system here. I can manage these devices individually and change their configuration, or as Karen mentioned, we can do this as a group. I want to show you a few things while we're on this device list here. Obviously, we can see the MAC address of those devices, their serial numbers, as well as the model number of those devices, the SIP extension that they're registered with. We have some additional information here as well. The device name, we can give a device name to each device. Some applications are dependent upon that device name itself, but also we give you 4 additional info fields where you can populate some additional information around that device and who it belongs to, what their role is, what department they're in, what for. So again, about the person, location, and that type of scenario, we can give you more additional information about that device and where it's deployed at. Okay. So with that, I want to show you that those 4 devices, or those 4 info fields, can be easily populated. So you can imagine if you had to go into each device configuration and populate this individually one by one, it might take some time. But we have a way to do that with our batch configuration upload. So let me show you that here. So here on our batch configuration page, we have a couple templates that are already available for you to download. One's just the default one here, then we have one that actually allows you to name a group for those devices to belong to. So when you upload these, again, they will populate not only the device information, but also the SIP configuration as well. So let me show you what that looks like as an example here. So here's an example of one of those templates. To do this, it's very simple. We populate the MAC address for those devices. Also, I'll list all my MAC addresses for all my devices here. Here's my device info field. I should say my device name field, and then of course we have the 4 info fields here. Okay, so again, we get pretty specific with that. And then also, here's my SIP information. So I have my SIP extension, my SIP username, and the password associated with those extensions. So I just populate those for each one of my devices and save that, and then I can go back to my system here and upload that. Okay, so I'll browse to that file I just saved, select that, and it uploads into the system here. So the system now builds all those configurations for you. Again, not only for those device information, but SIP configuration as well. So it's a handy little tool, save you a lot of time when you're doing the deployment, especially. Okay. Karen had mentioned groups. So again, we could build groups here, put phones into groups. So maybe you want to have one here for my North Campus. Right? I can select the devices I want to belong in that group. And then, of course, save that group. As you can see here, it appears down below. Okay. Now, at a group level, now I can change the configuration for that group, right? Maybe it's something around the button configuration or barcodes, right? This particular group may be barcode scanner enabled phones, and they're scanning maybe code 11 type of barcode, so I can uncheck the symbologies that they're not using. So I could build a custom configuration, again, for other features as well. Maybe it's push to talk or safe or some other feature, but again, it can be very specific for that group individually. Okay. Another nice application we have here, and I'll take a look here, is our battery life. Battery life monitoring. So this actually reminds the user that, hey, your battery's getting low. So you can see here when this is enabled, we can give a vibration for that user as well as a sound, play a tone for them. Again, so we have some thresholds as well. When that battery reaches these thresholds, either 15 or 20%, we send that notification to that user, hey, it's getting close to time to change your battery. Now the user has the option, they can actually put the phone in a snooze mode, say remind me in a little bit, kind of we're all familiar with the snooze mode on our alarm clocks, right? We have a range here of 1 to 5 minutes, and we can configure for that. Also, we can configure different tones to be played when that notification goes off. Okay, so you got some flexibility here. So again, nice reminder to have a user change the battery. Additionally, we have the buttons configuration application where we can configure different button layouts from the default. You can see here from the left button, it's designated now as the scanner, right button as a push to talk, but I can repurpose those assignments of those buttons. Maybe I say, no, I have a left-handed user, and I want to use the right button as the barcode scanner, so I can make those changes there as well. Something that we've added recently is the ability for the user to make those changes on the device itself. Now to do that, obviously I just simply check off the box here. But maybe as an administrator, I say, you know what, I want to lock these down in their current configuration. I don't want the user to have that ability to change it on the device. Okay, just simply uncheck that. Another nice feature here is we can actually map a button to an application. So maybe it's something like Spectralink .scan, right? Or whatever your application happens to be. So when they press that left button, it'll bring up that application. So again, some nice new features here with the button application itself. Something else we can do here is one of my favorites related to an RMA is a copy config. Now let's say my phone happens to get run over by a forklift. I'm not sure what happened there. I broke the screen somehow. Instead of having to reconfigure a device from scratch, I can, with this tool, select my device and then select a new device, my spare device I put on the network, and it's also communicating to the system here. So I'll select that device that I want to move my configuration to. We'll give you some additional fields down below here where you can select a description of why we're moving this configuration. Like maybe I broke the display, right? And then by hitting the copy config button, it moves my configuration from my source device to my target device with one button click. So that's actually pretty handy. Again, it saves you time. You don't have to go back in and reconfigure a device from scratch, right? So one button configuration move. Nice handy tool there. I also wanted to touch on some of the logging capabilities. In particular, our advanced debugging capabilities. So this come in particular handy when we're doing some troubleshooting. So we can, you guys probably know already, when a device is managed by the server here, by our AMIE Essentials server, it's impossible for the user to make those configuration changes within those applications, those Spectralink applications. They're grayed out, okay? Now for troubleshooting purposes, you can select that device and say, you know what, we'll allow that configuration change to take place just for this troubleshooting effort, okay? Along with that, I can capture bug reports, capture network traffic to be played back later, maybe in a tool such as Wireshark. I can also capture Logcat. You folks in the Android world know what these different types of captures are. Also, related to our individual chipset here for Qualcomm, we could do some Qualcomm chipset logging related to audio in networks, or I can get some specific related to the audio, network traffic, or WLAN. So again, we can do different traffic captures here related to those different areas. Now, of course, the phone will store these captures internally in its memory, but obviously that's limited. At some point in time, we're going to run out. So we used a first in, first out type of scenario. So the oldest one will get deleted so we can create a new one. But optionally, you could actually point and push off that capture file off to a web server. So once the phone closes the capture file, it will send it up and push it to that server, right? So you don't have to worry about storage and capacity on the phone. So another nice feature there. Let's take a look at the sys updater. So this is the process that we do to update the software on the device, right? So we can optionally, first after we download the configuration file, I should say after we download the software update file, we'll tell the phone here to force a reboot. So once we download it, we force the reboot. This is what applies the actual software update to the device. Okay, so it's a good idea to have that checked off there. If we have an LTE model phone, maybe we want to send that download file over the metered network, right, as an example, right? So we can check that off as well. But just remember that the Essentials server here does not house or host that software. We actually point the phones off to a web server where that software resides, okay? Pretty simple. Put in the server address. You don't need, if you're using a domain name here, you don't need the HTTPS in here, for instance. Put in the port number and then the relative path, right? Since mine's in the default directory, I'll just specify the file name of the software, right? Different protocols are supported, HTTP as well as HTTPS for secure communication. And then polling interval. You have SAM controlled or on boot. We'll have the phones check for a software update on boot or just periodically in the background. But we do recommend using the SAM only, that we have more more manageability over when those software updates take place. A new feature's been added here, revert to last upgrade. Yes, Versity does have 2 partitions, so it will obviously run the current partition and software in that partition, but also the previous version that was run on that device. So you could revert back to that last partition, that last software update that was running on the device, but just be aware that if you do that, it restores the phone back to factory default, so you will have to do a reconfiguration. So once I have my software update ready to go, I just trigger update here, click on this, trigger OTA, and that's what triggers the whole process. So again, as a management tip, you might want to do a group of devices at a time or a few devices at a time. Probably don't want to do that enterprise-wide. Okay, one more thing here is VQO. I think we're all familiar with the VQO technology that's built into the Spectralink devices for voice quality optimization. We also have some things around here related to Wi-Fi that we can tweak as well for voice quality optimization. So we have this one here, option here for a low RSSI threshold. Now this is when the phone is in standby mode, not when it's actually doing a roam and on a live call, I should say. Okay. So the default is -67. So this is the point where we're going to start looking for another access point. We'll do that scan in the background for another access point. Now, depending upon your site survey, you may need to tweak that a little bit, but we give that you that ability to adjust that one way or the other, depending upon your deployment type. Okay. Additionally, we have auto band selections here. If you're running a network that has both 2.4 gig and 5 gig, we can deselect one or the other. If we're only going to run a 5 gig network, you can do something like that. Additionally, we have some nice channel alignments down here, so we can actually define all the channels that are used in our environment. Let's say I have all the channels for 2.4 and 5 gig enabled, but I'm not using DFS channels. So I can deselect those channels for DFS and only use the ones that are non-DFS channels. So this is another one of those little tweaks that you can do to make it a little more high-performance scanning when it comes to roaming. So you guys are all aware when the phone does a DCA scan for available APs, it goes through every single one of the channels that are enabled. So this is one of those little things where we can cut that time down a little bit by scanning only the channels that are used in our environment. Okay, I think with that, I'll finish up with the AMIE Agent, which Elliot's going to talk about here in a minute. So to configure the phones to communicate with that AMIE gateway, it's pretty simple. We just enable the gateway here, and then of course put in your gateway address. So whatever that happens to be, my AMIE gateway. Put in your gateway address here. We also have some optional parameters here for, again, uploading that data over a metered network. Then we have different metrics, frequencies that we can select here for network as well as device and battery. So the default is 15 minutes, but you can have option here to select different intervals for that upload to take place. And of course, since this is a secure communication, we would paste in our certificate here for that secure communication. With that, I think that's all I've got to present. I'll turn it back over to you, Karen.
Great, thanks, Buzz. Appreciate that. So just real quick, the next part of our platform is AMIE Advanced. And AMIE Advanced is really focusing a little bit deeper now than device management and application management. This really goes more into device health and call performance monitoring. So we're going to be looking at things like battery health, device utilization, alerts and alarms, and some of the performance around call quality that Elliot will walk you through here in a few minutes. So this includes an administrative dashboard. It's a web portal, and as Bus just showed you, the AMIE Agent is an application that is preloaded on the phone. So AMIE Advanced is around operational transparency, really allowing you to be proactive around resolving some of these device issues before they happen. And so if you look at this wheel here, some of the questions that get asked around, like, what's really going on with my phones? Some of the things that you might be thinking about is, do my batteries need replacing? Are there any phones missing? Do I need more phones? How are my phones performing? Where was the device last used? Who was the person who had that device? Various things like that are all questions that, as we talked about earlier, in a shared environment are all things you need to be managing and to be able to look at to proactively handle any issues that may come up. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Elliot to show you AMIE Advanced.
Thank you very much, Karen. So with that, the wheel that Karen just showed, it really came from us listening to our customers and understanding that there's a lot of information that is really required post-deployment. And that the information, and organizations have some information, whether it comes from MDMs, EMM systems, but what our customers told us was those systems weren't giving a full picture. Because the devices were deployed in a shared environment, they had different questions and different information that the tools weren't giving them. And that's really where the AMIE Advanced platform comes into there. With that, I will share. Okay. So this is the AMIE Advanced platform and our console. So as we log in here, we see the main dashboard. And in our system, this is a system we have set up as in our office in Boulder, Colorado. We have 36 phones, 81 batteries, and 2 locations set up here. Normally, you'd see call performance. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, no one is in our office to make calls right now, so the call performance is 0 because an open call has been made today or yesterday. But normally this would show you the call performance for your fleet and the previous day's call performance and any kind of change one over the other. The system doesn't have any open alerts, but if there were, the open alerts would show up here, the number of open alerts on our map. And below this, we have some widgets here for battery status and device status. Under the battery status widget, we can show batteries which are good, ones that have a warning. Those are batteries that will need to be replaced soon, and batteries that need to be replaced. And as you can see here, as I mouse over this, we can see we have 4 batteries currently that need replacing. In both of these as well, we show how many of the devices have checked in the last 24 hours. So 2% here, and 5.56% of our phones have checked in the last 24 hours. And that is because we've actually brought the system down yesterday to make some changes and some modifications, but I'll have it back up later today. Under device status, we show here active, out of contact, and spare devices. And so as part of the system, spares and spare management is one of my personal favorite features of this the system. Spares allows you to add spares into the platform by their serial number. Those could be spares that are sitting in a closet. Eventually, at some point, that spare will be pulled out of the closet and put into use. When the system, when that device first checks into the AMIE system, the system takes a look and says, oh, this is a new device, and sees, is that device part of the spares list? If it is, it automatically, it sees it's checking in, sees it's working, will automatically remove that device from the spares list, taking your quantity here in this pie chart down by 1. So it's automated spare management. You don't need to, once you put the spares in, you don't need to go back as you take it out of the closet and put it into use. You don't need to come back to this system and actually take it out of the spares. The system will do that automatically for you. I'll move into our alert screen. I don't have any open alerts right now, so maybe I'll just talk to some of the types of alerts that you will see or can see in the system. We have warnings for battery degradation, and that's a warning, meaning that the battery is getting through close to its useful life. Start planning to replacing it. And then we do also have another alert for when that battery actually does need to be replaced. We have alerts for a device or a battery being out of contact. Out of contact in the system means that that battery has not checked in for more than 7 days. And as well, we alert on storage utilization of the device. If a device's storage is getting close to full in utilization, we send that alert out so that we can send some alerts down to the phone, to the user, to have that memory freed up before the user runs out of available space. Low call quality warnings, and we can look at low call quality by an access point or by a device and start to pinpoint devices and or access points that are having lower call quality, battery temperature, as well as loss of connection from that phone, from the gateway to the application. Okay. I'm going to click here onto the Devices tab. In the Devices tab, we're first presented with a device-specific dashboard. This device check-in chart here shows us how many devices have checked in the last 24 hours, 1 to 2 days, 2 to 3 days, 3 to 7, and more than 7 days. Beside that, we have a device utilization chart, and this shows us the utilization of the fleet of phones, and we can see how the fleet has been used. And as I change the timing on this, we can actually see the utilization change over time. So we can do that. There's also a filter here called tags, and so I can look down to maybe product management team and take a look at this, and we'll see you can also start to filter this by device. This is done, the tags are put into the device through our device settings app. There are 4 fields in there, so you've got the opportunity to put 4 different types of tags. So it could be a location as tag 1, a department as tag 2, a floor as tag 3, and so on. And that gives you the ability to do that type of filtering. For device distribution, we have different models of devices, and so this shows a distribution of the devices deployed as well as software on those devices. Most typically for our customers, this should be a nice solid ring because all the devices are on one version of software. Our engineers are constantly making updates to software and testing them, so we have different builds being put on by our engineers, and that's why you'd see so many different colors on this pie chart right here. And as well, the Android operating system, we can see what phones are on what operating system here, and as you see, we're looking to do an upgrade to Android 10, which is why we have a couple of phones on Android 10 that we're doing our upgrade on, but the vast majority of phones are on 8.1 Oreo. So with that, I'm going to click here up at the top, which is our Details tab, which will give us a details list and a list of all the phones. And so here we can filter this list and sort it in any way we want, showing the model number, the name of the device, serial number, software version, its zip extension, any tags or identifiers that come from that device settings app and pulled through, as well as the last time that device checked in. So I'm going to search for a phone here. And so by typing that in, that keyword, it brings it up. This is Chris Durant's phone. And as I click on Chris's phone, I can see some information about that phone. I can see the charge level of that device, its temperature, as well as some information here on the serial number, phone number, SIP extension, as well as the battery. And this is hyperlinked to the battery. We'll go to that in a few moments. Down below, what we do see is some accordions here. We can take a look at that device's activity. I can see the CPU, memory used on that device, as well as power. And you can see here there's a battery swap right there. As well as I can see the session activity. And this gives me a little more information about this device. I can start to see some of the processes and what's going on the device, as well as the black line here being the battery drain of the device. So I can start to understand what's going on for this with the device and correlate that to the battery drain. You can see, we can look at things here as I mouse over some of the elements of the graph, things like whether the device is in use or not, if it's doing scanning and information such as that. It's also an activity history of this device, so I can start to understand when this device by day has been used, its start usage time, end usage, the charge at the start and end of usage, how many calls were made, the total minutes in call for that device, and the last access point that this device connected to. And maybe I will switch over to another device. I'm going to look at this device and start to look at the call history. And call history, I find this is something that we're, as a group, we're very proud of in what we put into this. It shows us the call history for each device, and if I look at the connected APs, what this will show me as I click on view here, this was an 80-second call, and I can see here that over those 80 seconds, this phone roamed between 5 different access points. And so I can see these access points here, I can see the names of those access points, the network it was on, and as well a call score. This call score is called a MOS score. It's mean opinion score. This is a standard and used by the ITU, International Telecom Union, to define voice quality for voice over IP calls. It's a score between 0 and 5. Anything above 4 is considered to be a good call, and anything below 4 is considered to be poor audio, poor experience for the user. So what this shows us at the top here is we can see the call quality score for this call. We can see then it broken down to the time on each access point and a score given to each access point. And as we go forward, what I will show you is we take all of these segments of each call and do a weighted average on those scores to actually start to score our access points and find out which access points within the network are performing best for call quality. So that is, and then if we want to start to take a look at the specific call and call quality for that call, we also have this chart that you can look at. Up in the top, this gray shows the timeline. This is the first access point of the 5. At this duration point in the call, we switched over and handed off to a new access point. There's the third access point, fourth, and fifth. That's the final access point. Below that, in the same time series, is the MOS score. And so we can start to see how MOS and that call quality is affected by what access point we're on, as well as jitter on that call and packet loss of the call. There's no packet loss on this call, but we can see how jitter is affected and lines up to each of the access points. It's a nice, useful tool to go in and start to look at diving into specific calls that may have poor call quality. I do see one call here that had some low call quality at a 3.2, so let's just go in here and take a look at this one call. In this call, we can see call quality dipping down quite low, and this was done as a test to actually show poor call quality. And you can see here how that jitter affects that. And again, no packet loss for this call, but 3.156 as a call. And we can also report on, and we do report on, whether that call was dropped or not. So this call dropped and did not come to a full completion. Okay. And one other thing that I think I'd like to show you here is right here, the last location for the device. It's also here under the action buttons for this. So if we do come to the last location here, it does bring up, this is a floor plan of our Boulder office. it shows the last location, and there it is, AP2. This is our AP close to our lunchroom, and this is where the phone last connected from. And we can see it last connected today at 12:35, so almost 10 minutes ago. Okay. Moving into batteries. Batteries present a similar dashboard to the devices, showing how many batteries have checked in the last 24 hours, 1 to 2 days, 2 to 3 days, 3 to 7, and greater than 7 days, showing batteries that are out of contact. We show for the fleet of phones the top apps being used by battery consumption units. That is the units percentage of the battery consumed by that application across the whole fleet. And again, we can look at different departments. So if I go back and select product management again, those apps are going to change and show the top apps for product management. I'll just put it back to the whole fleet of devices, and we can look at this as well over the last 7 days and look at what the top app usage is in battery units. For battery status, again, good warning replace. That's the same widget for the main dashboard brought into the battery dashboard. We also, there is in there Versity phones. We have a secondary battery for hot swapping. We show the secondary battery health as well as temperature. And we can look at any kind of temperature warning or critical alarms here. Under our details tab, same type of view is presented, such as batteries, where we have the ability to see this list of devices, list of batteries, the health of that battery, as well as the number of charge cycles it's been through, and the last time that battery has checked in. And if we click on one battery as an example here, we can see this battery, and we can do we can look at the session activity by that battery, as well as the activity history, what batteries that phone has been from and to. And I think I mentioned this earlier. This is hyperlinked, so when you're on that battery page, you want to see what device it's in. You can click on that and move between battery and the device pages. And if I go back to this device page, and let's just go and take a look at, I go back to Chris Duran's phone. I think Chris might have some history and messages. No, he doesn't. Well, let's try another phone. There we go. So we can send messages down to a device. And so how you would do that is you come into the device, and we can send a message. Send a message like, please see IT for a replacement battery. And we can just send that down to the device. You can see that's created, hasn't been sent down to the device, but once that message is sent down as a push notification and is acknowledged by the user, the status of that will show up here as acknowledged. Moving on to our performance tab, this starts to show some of the things I was alluding to earlier with respect to call quality. First, we have call performance, and this shows us call performance by day. Any days where you see it down to 0 here on the call quality and the MOS scores, this just means that no calls were made that day. And the days where you do see it up, that is where our percentage of good calls and bad calls are, as well as the average MOS score for the fleet of calls that day. Down below here, what we do is we start to look at the scoring based on access points. And so we take all calls made and segments of calls made on an access point and start to take those call quality scores, calculate them up, and come up with our average MOS score for that access point, as well as the number of times that access point had a low MOS event that was any time in any call where the call quality dipped below 3 for a 5-second interval. And then we also show the total minutes in call for that AP and the number of low MOS events per call minute for that access point. And if you came to here and you were looking at this and said, well, Boulder floor 2, and let's maybe sort this. This is my top performing access point, 4.41. I'd like to know where that access point actually is. I can come here, click on that, and it will bring up the floor plan here for our Boulder office, as well as the location of that access point that we're looking at. On the right side of the screen, we show devices. And so what this shows is the call quality on a per device basis. So not only do we look at call quality in the segments of calls, but we also look for an access point, but we also look at call quality for each call made by each device and average those up to understand, are the problems that we're seeing, are they with the network, with the access points, coverage, or is the problem with the device itself? Which is a big question that we tend to get from time to time as customers have issues. Is it the phone or is it the network? And this really helps us to discern between the two. Other graphs here at the top are, in addition to call performance, are drop calls. So we can see by day how many drop calls happened on a given day. And if we look down below, we can start to see which access points had drop calls, the total number of calls, and the drop call rate. So this access point had 2 calls, both were dropped, 100% drop call rate. That is, pointing out an issue. Obviously, you'd want to see this with a greater sample size, but it starts to become concerning. Same as here. We have this phone having 4 calls, 2 were dropped. That's a 50% drop rate for that device. So it helps us to look and pinpoint these types of issues. Under long handoffs, a long handoff is a long duration of time it takes to move from to hand off the phone from one access point to another. So we again show these and measure them by both access point and device, as well as low signal strength graphing, and again always by both access point and device. And our last one here is packet loss summary, and we showed dropped and missed packets, and the dropped and missed packets by access point and device. The one last thing I think I'd like to show you before I wrap up here is organize the locations and how do I get those nice floor plans in with the access points. It's actually pretty easy on how we do it. When you have a site set up in the system, you can load a list of access points. There is a template to download. You fill that template in with your access points, upload that file. I've set up 2 floors here in our Boulder office, the 2nd and 3rd floor. So if we go to the 2nd floor here and take a look at this, it does bring up our floor plan, and I can do a review of this, and I can see all the different access points here. So I go around, there's AP9, it's the one we looked at before, AP2. And to get those onto the floor plan, it's very simple. Once we've uploaded our list, we come in here to assign an AP. We just click Start. Brings us up our crosshair, and let's say we wanted to drop a access point right here. I find where I want to. I drop it. You'll see there's now a red circle there. I would select an access point from the list that I've uploaded, assign it, and then save. I'm not going to do that because that's not a real access point, but it's pretty quick and simple to do this. All you've got to do is have an understanding of where your access points are and some floor plans and upload them into the system. If you don't do this, this is an optional feature, so if you don't put this in, it's not to worry. It will just give you the BSS ID of an access point that can be cross-referenced in different tools. If you have Cisco tools that you're running for Wi-Fi, you can do that. And maybe I'll show one other quick thing here, and that is licenses. If you've decided you want to expand by some more phones, very simple and easy. Grab a new license, drop your license key in, and we'll load in new licenses. I was mentioning right at the top of this about spares, so I'm going to flip here to our spares list. I don't have any spares loaded, but I could add a spare, just the serial number and model of that spare. It comes in, it gets added to the list of spares, and once you do that, if that phone ever begins to start to be put into use, checking into the AMIE platform, it will automatically be taken off the list. Again, no need for any manual intervention to do that. As devices are removed and you retire devices, we also keep that information for you as well. If you want to look back and see when a device retired, why it was retired, there is that retirement history. So I can see here under our pre-alpha location, there are 2 devices retired, and I can come in here, see that the serial number of that device, it was auto retired because it was out of contact for more than a month. And so it automatically takes it off and frees up a license for a new device. These devices can also be manually retired. Go in, select the device. There is some actions to select the device and retire it, and that's very simple to do. I'll show that right quick here. I'll take my device, and if I wanted to retire it, all I've got to do is come here, click on retire, and I would retire the device. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to retire my device. And that's all for me. So Karen, back to you.
Great, Elliot. And we have a few minutes for questions, but do you want to show them the report that they can also produce to be able to send to their management?
For sure, thanks. So the system does produce a monthly report. So if you aren't going into the system, a monthly report is auto-generated and emailed out to a distribution list, which you can set up within the tool. And this is what that report looks like. Here's our March report. You can see here we had 99.78% call performance, good call quality within our environment. Summary as of March 31st of number of out-of-contact devices, batteries, some other things here. Safe alarm pushes, how many drop calls we had, minutes in call, our utilization for our fleet over the month, as well as top apps, and then each of the performance charts done over the month. You can see here the call performance summary, drop calls, long handoff chart, low signal strength, as well as packet loss. And that is, like I said, sent out automatically every month.
Great. Thank you very much, Elliot. And we do have a few minutes left here, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them into the chat window there, and Wes and Elliot will be happy to answer any questions that you have. So first question, Elliot's probably directed more towards you. Is Spectralink considering an alert management offering?
Yes, in fact we are. It's something that we're looking at. We feel that this tool really helps with the management of some of the aspects of the fleet of phones, and so we are looking at some different services that we can add on around this tool. And one of them is an alert management offering.
Perfect. Any other questions? Well, wonderful. With that, I will bring the webinar to a close. I appreciate you all joining us today. If you would like some more information about AMIE, you can visit our website or get in touch with us at info@spectralink.com. And this recording will go out to you for everybody that attended. So as soon as it's available, we'll make sure that you get a copy. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and hope you all have a great day.